Welcome to Groundwater Rising. This podcast is all about flooding, and in particular, as the title suggests, we focus on one of the most overlooked and misunderstood types, groundwater flooding. Historically, it's the least monitored, the least talked about, and often it's the last thing on the list when discussing flood risk. And it's that lack of understanding that can leave communities confused, unprepared, and unheard. I'm Helen from Project Groundwater, and I'll be speaking to community members who live with groundwater flooding, alongside those researchers, engineers and practitioners who are working to understand it better and to reduce its impact. But I'm not here as a technical expert. I'm here to ask those questions that people outside of the sector might be too embarrassed or just don't often have the opportunity to ask. Things like, what does this actually mean and why does it matter to me? Together, we're going to explore those real experiences, the emerging research and the practical thinking from the water sector, academia and beyond to help make groundwater flooding something people can understand and talk about and plan for. So today I'm joined by Patrycja Meadows. She's a hydroecologist within the Environment Agency and spends most of her time studying chalk streams, including the temporary rivers that appear and disappear with the seasons. So Patrycja's work focuses on understanding how these unique systems behave, what their changing rhythms can tell us about the health of our groundwater and the ecology that depends on it. Good afternoon, Patrycja. How are you?
Good afternoon, Helen. Thank you for inviting me today.
It's an absolute pleasure, absolute pleasure. I'm looking forward to chatting to you. I mean, the first question really is, what does a hydroecologist actually do day to day?
So maybe I start with saying what hydroecology is, which might be a bit easier to start with. Hydroecology is the scientific study of the interactions between the water hydrology and living organisms like flora and fauna in the river, and in particular how the water movement shapes this ecosystem, how it distributes the organisms that live in it. So what hydroecologists might do, monitoring of rivers, study the organisms that live in it, and trying to find those interactions and whether these ecosystems are healthy. So the assessment, appraisal, might evaluate how they respond to different hydrological years, to different flows and different amount of water, studying different in the low flows, in the high flows. What I do is more focus on monitoring, on setting up monitoring programs, managing monitoring programs in order to understand how healthy are the rivers, to pick it up with monitoring ecological elements such as macroinvertebrates, macrophytes, and we also collect a lot of environmental data, flow observations, water quality depths, fixed photography. For this particular program is very important. So to understand the environment and the environmental variables, different parameters, and how they impact or how they influence rather the organisms living in the water.
So what drew you to your work specifically with chalk streams? Is that just by the geology and the area that you're in, or is it like a passion that's drawn you into it more?
I've always been passionate about rivers, so I always specialised in river ecology, so hydroecology, and I was always curious about rivers and what lives in them, and I get excited studying the plants and invertebrates. I had the always strong need for being on the side of the river, not for the business side of the river, that makes sense. So represent the rivers and help to restore the rivers, help to protect them. So that always driven me to chalk streams, which are very unique and they don't have statutory protection yet, and which is really shocking when you think how unique they are, how special. It's 85% of the chalk streams present in the UK, only 15% in the rest of the world. I believe it's New Zealand and France and perhaps other places. Another very unique feature of chalk streams is that they have relatively constant temperature because they groundwater fed. So they're supposed to be somewhere around 9, 10, 11 degrees. And if they're not impacted by the rainwater or any runoff or discharges, then they will sustain that temperature throughout the year. So they'll be warmer in the winter than classic other type of rivers, and they'll be cold in the summer, which is really good for the organisms that live in there. And chalk streams support high diversity, high biodiversity. So they will support a lot of mayflies and stoneflies, caddisflies that other rivers might not. And I just wanted to say how important is the diversity of habitats in chalk streams. So they will have the marginal vegetation, the vegetation in stream, like the water crowfoot. They will have the herbs in the margins, like watermead, forget-me-not, canary reeds.
Lovely detail. It's about understanding that without that diversity, you don't have the quality of the water. You can't maintain that diversity for other habitats either. It stops. So you need to keep that diversity going for everything to be healthy and for it to continue. I've got one, it might be a stupid question, it might not. I'll give it a whirl.
There is no stupid questions, apparently.
Exactly. That's what I like to hear. So with a chalk stream, are chalk streams only ever going to be fed by groundwater?
Yes, that's the special feature. They are groundwater fed systems. They might have, as they are going from the headwaters towards somewhere confluence with another river, they might have different amount of runoff, what we say, or the rainwater mixed. But I've heard in the literature that it's about 75% of groundwater is sort of natural for chalk streams, against the rest of it is the rainwater or the runoff from the catchment. The groundwater chalk is very, very complicated, and it will be lined, confined by other geological layers like clay. So you never know where the water might be popping out. Some hydrogeologists and hydrologists, they study chalk. I've heard that is from the previous podcast, one of your podcasts, there was someone who was talking about chalk, and they said it's about 450 to 600 litres per metre square of the chalk. That's how much water they can contain.
That's why we've got a podcast. So that was Guy Parker in July. So if anyone listening wants to go back and find that one on our Groundwater Rising, wherever you get your podcasts.
It's fascinating. It's a very good episode.
So are Winterbournes, they're not necessarily temporary, but they're the ones that are annually?
They are temporary, type of the temporary streams, but they are drying regularly every year, so they're more seasonal. Winterbournes, so they're coming back in the winter and disappear in the summer.
Obviously when they dry, that's one level of anxiety, but there's the anxiety around when they're back and flowing, and then groundwater is rising, and then the fear of flood. Is there any way of sort of tying that together so you get an understanding of when that's going to happen?
Well, as an ecologist, I'm interested in a river when it's dry, and obviously when it's flowing, and when it's bursting its banks, because it's a natural phase in the river's life. So it depends whether we've got the consecutive wet winters, the chalk aquifers will be full, and obviously once there's more rain, they'll be starting to spill and flood. We have been living by rivers so close and building the houses. I mean, we as a human race, I suppose, because we love rivers and we need them for water. But from the ecology point of view, what they do when they are spilling from the channels, they'll be fertilizing the land. In the natural river system, you would have wetlands and flat plain meadows in those surrounding areas, not the houses. So that would be helping to provide extra habitat. So in the natural, obviously, world, that's really good. But it's understandable that people find it stressful, because the houses were built in hundreds of years ago already, very close to the river channels and roads, and we quite rightly get upset. But I think it's now what we need is find the balance to protect people from flooding, but also find the space where we can for the water, for the wetlands, for connecting the rivers with the flat plains.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important that the work being done in Project Groundwater, for example, is, bringing back those nature-based solutions, bringing back ways that those different water systems can work together.
Absolutely.
To sort of repair quicker, I suppose, and to restore that landscape as quickly as possible.
It is wonderful, and then I think there's more and more initiatives and projects combine, just protection for people and also a space for rivers, which is really, really important as well. Lots of birds rely on those wetlands as well, and they control the number of insects. There's lots of the cycles that are broken because we don't have enough wetlands generally everywhere. I think the whole world is suffering from that sort of draining the land. It's the cultivation, it's the agriculture, it's the urban areas, and there's no space for rivers. And I think that's something that is going to be particularly important with the global climate change as well, because we will tend to have more sort of floods and droughts, and there is no water retention in the floodplains, in the riparian zones. So there's a need for more projects where we can find the solutions how to provide more space for rivers, but at the same time protect people from flooding.
And we're going to visit one, aren't we, next week, you and me?
Yes.
So we're allowed out in our wellies with our microphones, and we're going to explore a Winterbourne.
I'm hoping to take you to Nailbourne, because I think this is one of our longest temporary chalk streams. The Winterbournes are absolutely fascinating, and they do have specialised invertebrates that are adapted to that drying. So they'll be laying eggs on those exposed riverbeds when the rivers are dry, and those exposed areas with eggs will need to be exposed to colder temperatures. So the timing of that drying is very important for them as well, and drying and re-wetting, and they rely on the flows to come back for a specific amount of time, and they'll be developing quicker to fit all their life cycle within that sort of drying and re-wetting. And what I'm really interested in as well is increasing the understanding of how they dry phase with terrestrial plants and invertebrates, which are more like opportunistic and pioneering species, because obviously it's the system that changes all the time. So the plants and invertebrates has again adapted to those stresses or changes, so they've been more resilient, or even adapted their life cycles to allow for that drying, for re-wetting. So I would like people take a bit more time and sort of observe them in their different states and get fascinated as me with what lives in them and how we can help them to sustain those healthy populations of plants and invertebrates by providing those different habitats and observing them, really, because we do a lot about them, but I don't think we know everything about them.
I think if anyone needs to be enthusiastic, they should just listen to you, because you've got me enthusiastic. And I actually, before I spoke to you, was it about a month ago, I'd never heard of the term Winterbourne. Is there an opportunity for the general public to get involved? I mean, do you do any citizen science within that monitoring?
Fantastic you mentioned that, because yes, they are excellent ways of helping us to monitor rivers. And there's a citizen science initiative, flow detectors, and you can join by downloading the Groundwater app, which allows to record the flow observations, for example.
Well, I'm really, really looking forward to seeing you next week and getting out and about. And my wellies are quite tall, but I haven't got waders. Is that a problem?
No, it should be fine. We won't let you in the deeper section. It'll be just somewhere when it's hopefully still like welly.
Wellies, not waders, I'm glad. Thank you so much for spending time with me today, Patrycja. I mean, I genuinely mean it. Your enthusiasm is contagious. It's a wonderful thing. So thank you. So this is a slightly strange one for Groundwater Rising. And I don't know if you can hear the lambs all around us. But I have travelled to Patrycja, just outside Canterbury down in Kent, to meet Patrycja. She's currently with the Environment Agency team, the local team, knee-deep in a Winterbourne. So as soon as she's finished, we're going to have a chat, and she's going to tell me all about what she's monitoring today, what we can see, and just let us all know a little bit more about this beautiful, beautiful Winterbourne. It's called the Nilebourne. I think it's one of the longest in the country, but it's also surrounded by the most beautiful countryside and some really shouty lambs.
I'm trying new methods for surveying Winterbournes, and we're trying to do extra splashing in the margins. We're hoping to get some beetles mainly, or Diptera larvae, which is the fly sort of family, or the fly larvae or beetles that are associated with river margins and drying up areas. It makes me out of breath, actually. It's a really good workout. So yeah, we're trying to get an idea what's the diversity in the channel and then in the margins or any type of habitat. We're never going to get 100% what lives in there. We're aiming for 60-70%. We've got ducks just arrived on the other side of the bank. So yeah, it's a very exciting job because it's not just ordinary sampling, it's also developing and designing new methods. But in the same time, it's really stressful if I get it right. We need to try. We try our best when we start analysing the data. And we've got other years to come to rectify anything that we do.
That's the whole point in a lot of the work that we're doing in the FCRIP project, the Flood and Coastal Resilience Innovation Projects. It's learning, isn't it? It's learning, it's showing other people what we've learned, it's discovering and trying and testing new methodologies and helping the broader industry learn as well.
Absolutely, and I think that is the part of the job that I love, the learning that never stops.
Carry on gathering for a bit. I don't want to stop you doing what you're doing, and we'll chat again in a minute.
Yeah.
You found?
As a beetle. I think this one is the aquatic beetle from the margins, and they are absolutely happy on land and in water. So they're adapted to survive in the air, and they're obviously flyers, so they can just walk out and fly to a different water body if they're not happy with this one. They had enough, or they haven't found a partner or food, because that's what their main job is, isn't it? It's either reproducing or feeding. And I'm quite glad that we've got this one. It's quite a nice big one. So that in the future we go compare to samples and see whether we were effective enough in the first normal standard sampling compared with those extra margins.
I joined you as you were already in the stream. What was your plan today?
So my plan was to take macroinvertebrate sample. If someone doesn't know what the macroinvertebrates are, there are any snails, beetles, stoneflies, mayflies, all the creatures that live. So the fauna, but it's a macrofauna, so that means that you can see it with your own eyes.
Right.
Because there's a lot of much smaller meiofauna, which is really tiny. It's a 3-minute kick sample plus 1 minute hand search, which allows us to get a representative sample from that reach. And then we're going to use the data to assess the number of taxa, the number of species that are here, and also various indices like WHPT, which is a well-known amongst ecologists metric to assess the health of the river.
This looks like it's flowing quite fast. What does that tell you about the groundwater around here and the water levels?
The levels are really good right now. In my opinion, this is sort of medium levels, but the flows, you're right, they are fast. So that's really good. This is what we expect from Winterbournes at this time of the year. And that's really a good phase for many invertebrates that require fast flowing. They're those that like the flow. And the length of that phase, the flowing phase, is also important. So in healthy rivers, there will be a specific time until April, May, and those invertebrates are adapted to complete their cycles by the time the flows start to drop.
Right.
So the groundwater levels must be just at the highest, so the groundwater aquifers are full. They might have already started to drop slightly.
Right.
And I'm sure that there are some hydrographs, the groundwater hydrographs, which will show you they probably reached their peak already. The chalk is really complicated.
How often do you actually get to come down? I mean, how often would you monitor this river in particular, for example?
So for invertebrates, we come twice a year for rivers that flow all year round. But for Winterbournes, it's usually spring mainly, because the autumn sampling is between September and November, and if they have been dried up to that moment, the communities wouldn't have time to establish yet. So we often need to either drop the autumn sampling, so that means that spring sampling is most important, and we try to come in April mainly or beginning of May, because the Winterbourne specialists complete their cycle. They don't emerge yet, so we need to capture them before they emerge basically and disappear. So we after the larvae mainly, but I'm saying that there are some adults like beetles that we also after, so I shouldn't say.
And we found one of those, didn't we?
Oh yes, we did, which makes me always very happy.
Okay, well, are we moving on to the next part?
Yeah.
Hang on, what were you just doing with the buckets?
So after we take a sample, we put them in the buckets, and they need burping because they especially when we put some preservatives, and then the gases are just released, and so you need to burp a bucket.
Burp the buckets. Let's both bucket burping. You're about to pressure hose your boots.
Yeah. Biosecurity.
Biosecurity.
For the environment.
I love that.
So we don't spread any seeds or any disease from site to site. And we sometimes use different waders, but because we're going very close site, it's the same river basically, just down there in a more urbanised area. But still it's good practice to clear your wellies.
So we've moved a little way up the road along the chalk stream where there are houses all the way along, and it runs right through a little sort of hamlet, I suppose, under a bridge. It's a lot faster flowing down here. There's quite a lot of evidence that there are people living around here. I mean, there's some of the road signs have fallen into the river, and there's a cone in the river, and there are areas where it's clearly running quite heavily over the road. So it's a completely different sort of set of circumstances around here. It's still quiet, still beautiful. Evidence of human involvement more than sheep.
Even in that, that's really fast.
Right, yeah.
It's hard to even hold the net.
Is it hard to stand up?
Yes.
So Patrycja is right in the middle of the really fast-flowing stream, actually. I'm amazed at, when it's this shallow, that it is running that fast. And she's got her net and she's doing a 3-minute sample, so really digging around in the silt, moving stuff around as much as possible, just to try and get a different reading at this level, at this point in the stream.
Always check for creatures first, make sure they are here. Maybe it's because of pollution from residential area. There could be. We will be looking into different pressures and analysing our data against multiple pressures, trying to assess what is the state basically of a river based on that. Oh look, this is another type of which is Elodus. What's the common name, Wendy, for Skirtidae? We don't even know whether there is a common name. I'm really sorry.
Let's just call him Jim.
Oh no, because Jim will have to be put down on the IMS. I really don't like that.
Let's not give him a name.
One day we'll do probably just DNA potentially, so we don't have to kill invertebrates. So we've got mixed feelings about this, because obviously we think looking into invertebrates as they are under the microscope is still the way, but we don't like killing stuff, don't we? Really necessarily. Sorry, I shouldn't have been saying this really. Well, but is it true?
It's part of the process though, isn't it?
It's part of the process.
And a part that, we wouldn't really consider.
No, but it's unfortunate.
You can't have them running around on a microscope, can you?
No, some people attempt to live, but I still think they need to dispose of the sample anyway. I don't think they would go back and release them into the river. They wouldn't survive that anyway. They need running water, most of them.
Well, there are brave heroes. Yeah. Jim, you're a brave chap. Yeah. You don't know it yet, but you are.
Well, they've got millions of names. That's Acellus aquaticus, which also is called the hoglouse. Piggies. I've heard all sort of piggies, water piggies, or whatever. There's so many names, localised in each county.
Yeah, different dialects. Yeah,
and they will make you chuckle if you look it up. But they are very important. They cleaners. They eat all the organic matter.
What did we just find, Wendy?
Skirtidae, they're marsh beetles.
Oh, there we go. Now we all know. Pitch them in your mind's eye.
So I need to move about. Yeah. Go back to my area.
So what happens to these samples now, once we've burped them?
These will get taken back to our lab in Addington, where we'll preserve them, and then we'll sort them at a later date, identifying them.
So you do that there and then send the results back to Patrycja? Yeah, we put them on a programme, and Patrycja will be able to see the results there and look at the data from it.
So she does some of the dirty work, but not all of the dirty work.
Yeah, not all the dirty work.
This bit of the stream is obviously crossing it's not a full-on road. Oh no, it is.
Yeah, there's ford. When we came here in the summer to do the plant survey, it was open and accessible, but I think groundwater flooding has been quite an issue this winter, so they've obviously had to close it.
Yeah. I wonder if I can find any residents who've been flooded. I might try and track someone down in a minute. There's a lot of dog walkers around here. It's a nice little residential through bit. Do you know that this is a Winterbourne? So a Winterbourne is a chalk stream that is fed only by groundwater, so by the floodwater that comes up through the ground. Sense, So and they come back every year. So I'm assuming if you're local, you've seen this high and low.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So
and at the moment it's closed off the road, so it's pretty high.
No, it's dropped down at the moment. So it was higher than this. I've seen it when it's been right out of here. Yeah, we've had to sort of kind of tiptoe around the edge to get through.
But you love living down on the river,
no,
do you?
absolutely, yeah. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else.
So how do you feel when it does flood?
Well, it's very pretty when it's flowing, but it doesn't affect us because we're not sort of right on the river. It does affect some of the houses quite badly. The house through Patrycja there, they were flooded. You had to wear waders to get in the front door. It was like halfway up the door.
Wow.
And it would be coming up. The toilet ended up like a fountain. It was just coming up through the water source under the ground.
Yep.
It didn't come from the river itself. It's coming up through the floor.
That's the thing, it's the type of flooding that people don't know about and aren't expecting. You imagine, the river breaks its banks and you see the water coming towards you, but you don't imagine it to rise up from underneath you.
It suddenly starts coming up through and you find your carpet's wet and it's not great.
Okay, well thank you. It's just good timing that you're passing as we're here taking samples from the river. So
Yeah.
Yeah, so then we've got residents walking along here, remembering times when it seems to flood quite regularly down here. And there are obviously beautiful little cottages right along the stream itself. But they seem quite used to the ebbs and flows of the stream. And that's the thing, people are drawn to Winterbournes like this. People are drawn to the river and it looks absolutely beautiful and they wouldn't want to be anywhere else. It's amazing, actually. Woo! Gosh, I almost went. How strong the flow is. So this is a part of the Winterbourne that's actually flooding out over one of the roads through this area. The road is closed. There is a little bridge to the side so people can still get through on foot. It's definitely surprised me how such a beautiful little stream can then, turn a corner and all of a sudden it's causing quite a lot of disruption for the locals.
And there'll be some... Oh, there's always a shrimp, isn't it? There's always a shrimp. Maybe a few ants.
So we have seen different parts of this Winterbourne today. I've seen you taking the samples. I've seen all the little invertebrates you've been finding. It's just been absolutely brilliant to see it in real life and to see you getting down and getting soggy in
wet
the stream.
hands, wet elbows.
So thank you. And I think for me, actually being here now, looking at the bits where it has actually flooded and you can actually see the effect and the flow running, to me looking fast. You can see how it connects with groundwater. What are you going to do now? What happens to those samples now?
Thank you for having me and talking to me. It was an absolute pleasure to share experience of Winterbourne sampling, especially at its high groundwater levels and bubbling and flowing, and it was actually quite difficult to take a sample because it's flowing so fast. So those samples will be taken to laboratory, will be preserved, the buckets will be burped again, then the ecology team will analyse samples mixed species level, because not everything is possible down to species level. Then it will be uploaded onto database. Our database is called Biosis. There will be metrics calculated within the system, so when we extract the data we can already see some indices, the raw data indices, so we need to still calculate the predicted scores, so what we think should be there, and then we compare with the observed data, and so we know how much the site is deviating from its current conditions. For chalk streams, the problem is we don't have reference data, so we don't really know how diverse they will be, and Winterbournes even more are unknown. We already know a bit, but we still need to better understand how the different phases, the high flows, the low flows, the shaping the communities. And what happens as well with that data that is available on external data explorer, ecology explorers, so anybody can use that data and do their own calculation, whether it's academia or citizen science or anybody who's interested. So please do try to find the data on external Data Explorer, and you can find much more, not just invertebrates. There will be plants, there will be water quality data, there will be some groundwater data, so it's everything that Environment Agency collects. Raw data is available free of charge. So I think that's already a win-win, but we will try obviously do more reporting, and we will try to analyse and look into different pressures and different water levels with different pressures are doing to the community. So thank you very much. I hope that was useful.
That was absolutely brilliant. We've had such a lovely day, and I think it's going to be one of the nicest sounding podcasts with the lambs and the birds and the bubbling water.
So I hope that people get out this year and look at the rivers, enjoy them, record the flows on the Groundwater app. That's really easy. You can download the app as well and record your own monthly flow observations, take photos, enjoy, and we hope that inspires some people to go out and about.
I'm sure it will. Lovely. Well, off to the next one.
Thank you. Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So to our listeners, if you like what you've heard, then remember you can subscribe, you can leave a review, and you can share this with other people that you think might be interested to know more from us as well. So if you've got a topic that you want to hear about in the future or discuss, or you want to come and talk to me about your personal experiences, then you can drop me an email on groundwaterrising@projectgroundwater.co.uk, and we'll be back next month. Thank you, Patrycja.
Thank you, Helen.